thought of abortion is bad enough, but the idea of forcing a young girl to have one makes the blood boil. Today, you'll hear from our guest who will show us just how serious a problem this is. It's not a rare occurrence. And you'll hear from one of the victims herself. Stay with us. Greg, Terra, and Stephen Casey are allied attorneys with the Alliance Defense Fund. Discovering they both had a passion for pro-life work, the two partnered to form the Texas Center for Defense of Life in January 2011. Over the last year, a number of cases involving forced abortion have dramatically shed a light on how often this injustice occurs. In today's society, is there really a problem with women being forced or coerced into having an abortion?
There really is, and you know, Stephen and I were not aware of how much of a problem I think this was until we represented a 16-year-old girl here in Austin in October of 2010. But through that litigation that we went through, we learned that it really is much more of a problem than we thought.
I've read, Stephen, that there's some research that shows 60% of women feel that they were either coerced, pressured, or forced to have abortion. Based upon your collective experience, do you find that realistic or believable?
Well, I would find that reasonable. At the time when someone is in that choice situation, they're under a lot of emotional duress. And when someone is under emotional duress, it does not take a lot of psychological pressure to move them in one way or another. They are in a crisis pregnancy. This is unplanned. They don't know what to do. So they're, in reality, relying on their friends, relying on their family to help guide them.
What reasons are given by the people who coerce women into having abortions? I mean, what's their motivation?
Well, for our client, Ashley, the parents, she was 16, obviously, she was unmarried. Her parents were telling her that she would ruin her life if she went forward with the pregnancy, continue the pregnancy. She couldn't go to college, she was throwing her life away. So those are the types of things that I think was communicated to her.
Allan Parker is an attorney and president of the Justice Foundation, who says his organization works to protect the fundamental freedoms and rights essential to the preservation of American society. In the past few years, they've amassed nearly 5,000 testimonies of women who were coerced into having an abortion. I sat down with Allan to address the role the abortion industry plays in forced abortions.
I've talked with some former ones who say that they do believe that it occurs sometimes when they know it. On the other hand, I have to say, there are cases where the girl stands up loudly for her rights and says, I'm being forced to have an abortion, I don't want this, that they stop it, even Planned Parenthood and others. Though I do say that their screening procedures are extremely inadequate. They should be aware that this occurs in such a high percentage that their overall screening is inadequate, and I do have to say that. And that's part of their overall technique of really just getting it rushed, getting it done, and doing as many as possible in as short a time as possible.
Do you think the motivation for making money off of abortions gives credence to the thought that they're participating in a forced abortion?
I think the fact that they want to get them done as quickly as possible, in as short a time as possible, with as little disclosure, makes them very insensitive to this.
When we return, we'll hear the testimony of a young woman who's still dealing with the emotional ramifications of a coerced abortion.
Look around you. We're surrounded by people who courageously face difficult obstacles life has thrown in their paths. Tune in each week to meet people who show there are positive, godly solutions to tough, critical situations. This Emmy Award-winning show tackles challenging life issues such as abortion, stem cell research, and adoption, and shows every human life is valuable and precious. Join us for inspiring stories of people facing life head-on.
Day Doblinger was 17 years old and living with her aunt and uncle when she discovered she was pregnant. Day's aunt told her she was throwing her life away, and and threatened to kick Day and the baby out of the house if she didn't have an abortion. While Day loved and wanted her baby, she was terrified to stand up for herself as her aunt made an appointment at Planned Parenthood. I sat down with Day to hear her powerful story. With Day was Sarah Stone, director of the Pregnancy Care Center that helped her a few years later.
I didn't want to do it, but I was so terrified of no other way, no other option, that we would have just been
Out in the street?
out in the street, never would have had a roof on our heads, and that was a life that I came from, and I didn't want to end up like that again. And so, being terrified out of my mind by my aunt and uncle, I just had no other choice. The morning of the appointment, my aunt gave me a Xanax to drug me up, and we pulled up, and there were protesters out, and I just started screaming, bawling my eyes out. I didn't want to go in. I was terrified. The protesters were standing 4 feet in front of me, and I just wanted to run to them and have them take me away, because I knew that maybe one of them would have, because they're so strong to be out there doing that. Maybe they would have wanted to help me, but I was too scared. And so I couldn't get out of the van. I was just crying. My aunt pulled me out of the van, dragged me into Planned Parenthood. When they took me into Planned Parenthood, they gave me more drugs, Valium, to put me under the fluids more. The nurse gave me double.
Did the nurse know you didn't want to have the abortion?
They knew, yeah. But my aunt told me that I better not say that I don't want to do it, because then legally they can't give it to me. She knew I didn't want to do it. All I remember is being in the doctor's room, or in the procedure room. The nurse was just pushing me around, telling me just get up there, just do it, was just very rude and pushy and wanted to get it done and over with. And then during the procedure, like I said, the doctor came in with the mask on, didn't introduce herself, shoved my legs open, and just put the machine inside. And I was just screaming and screaming. It was the worst feeling I ever felt in my entire life. And I was telling him to stop, stop, stop at her, and I was just screaming. And the nurse comes up to me and tells me to shut up, you're scaring the other patients. And
She said that, shut up?
told me to shut up. And several times just trying to get me to shut up, that I was scaring the other patients. Then they made me stay 20 minutes or so and made me leave. The pain didn't stop for a long time. My body didn't heal up for a long time, and it's been, 6-7 years since, and mentally I'm still just torn up about it.
Thousands of women have found themselves in Day's shoes. Greg, Terra, and Stephen Casey have seen many of them. The first forced abortion case they encountered was a 16-year-old girl named Ashley, who was being physically dragged into an abortion facility. Thanks to their legal help, Ashley's story had a much happier outcome.
I received a call from a local pro-life leader here in Austin who told me that there was a 16-year-old girl who was being forced to have an abortion by her parents against her will.
Define force.
Well, they were physically at the abortion clinic when he called me, and she was being thrown to the ground by her parents. She was being physically dragged into the clinic. She wound up with a bloody knee in the process, and the police were called and didn't do anything about it. But so he called me and told me about that situation and asked us to get involved on the legal side to help her.
What did you do?
The first thing we did was met with the client. We got the client's permission for representation, and at that point we worked on a restraining order against the parents and filed it down in Travis County, asking the court to prevent the parents from coercing her, harassing her, or threatening her with an abortion. And it's really interesting fact-wise, because at that time she was holding on to the car bumper while her mother was dragging her. I mean, very dramatic if you think about that, she's going to pull her daughter in there and tell her, take these RU-486 pills, which we found out later, based on her gestational age could have killed her.
As a result of the legal help offered by Greg and Stephen, Ashley was able to give birth to her baby and chose to parent. It's a great example of the wonderful protection pro-life legal aid can provide. In a moment, we'll hear about the steps women and lawyers can take to prevent a forced abortion situation.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
Sarah Stone has been the executive director of the Pregnancy Care Center in San Antonio, Texas for 6 years. In her time there, she's seen many women seeking help to get out of a forced abortion situation. Using a crucial letter provided by the Justice Foundation, Sarah and her staff are able to inform the women and any third party of the expectant mother's rights with regard to choosing not to have an abortion. Sarah, obviously, through the Supreme Court rulings, a woman's right to choose to have an abortion is protected by law. How about her right to choose not to have an abortion?
It is Texas law that she cannot be forced to have an abortion. It's against the law to actually coerce someone into an abortion.
Then how can something so horrific happen?
Many people don't know that it's against the law, but it is against the law, and the Justice Foundation has provided us a letter that's been, I wish I had it back then, but we've proved very effective in stopping abortions when we can present that to a parent saying, your daughter has a right to have this baby.
Roe v. Wade goes both ways, right? So if a woman has an absolute legal right, a woman or girl has an absolute legal right to go forward with the abortion, she also has an absolute legal right to not go forward with the abortion against her will. And you know, that's something that I think a lot of feminists don't necessarily think about.
Allan, are there any legal ramifications for those who do the coercing or forcing of abortion on young girls?
Absolutely. Even parents can be held guilty of fetal homicide. About 37 states have fetal homicide. That would be the most severe penalty. That's murder. But all states have laws against child abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress, assault and battery. There was a case that got a lot of newspaper publicity. The parents dragged a girl over 18 and stuck her in the car and drove her against her will to an abortion clinic. That's false imprisonment. The abortionist can be liable for assault and battery because any medical procedure which does not have the patient's voluntary informed consent is a unwanted touching by the doctor even.
You talked about restraining orders for the parents. Do you have to get those against the abortion facility too?
What we did, we couldn't really do that because what we did though is we prepared a document that we had our client sign and date and notarize, and we sent to the abortion facilities in the local area saying that she does not consent to an abortion, and you know, basically if you go through with one against her will, that you're probably going to be facing a lawsuit.
Have you ever seen an abortionist violate a signed non-consent form from a woman?
We have not had that. Every place where we've gotten the form into the abortionist hand, the abortionist has been stopped.
So it's been 100% effective then.
Yes, it has.
Allan, if the girl needs to get out of her family environment and somewhere else immediately, what do you do for her then?
Well, we know there are about 3,000 crisis pregnancy centers or pregnancy resource centers in America. We can connect through them through our National Helpline for Abortion Recovery or the option line number of CareNet and Heartbeat. And we have good relationships with the major networks of these crisis pregnancy centers. So if a girl calls us, we call one of them immediately. We say, where do you live? We find one in your area. And there are maternity homes or what are called shepherding homes, a place where a girl can go and live with another family until the baby is born. We get her in touch with a place to live safely, sometimes just for a few weeks. The first time we ever happened to this, the moms and dad were so angry, they put her in a maternity home. 3 weeks later, they said, come home, come home. And that baby is now a cherished grandchild in that family, I know.
4 years after being coerced into a devastating abortion, Day found herself pregnant again. This time she sought the help of Sarah and the Pregnancy Care Center. After seeing the ultrasound, Day fell in love with her new baby and chose to parent. Her daughter is now 2 years old, and Day's life has been getting better each day. She worked hard to earn a college degree and is currently working as an EKG tech. Day credits this turnaround to her love for her daughter and the help she received from Sarah. Day, what do you want people to know about the center?
That it's a fantastic place. It's if you need help, that's where you want to go. One, they're not going to judge you. Two, they're not just nice because if they're getting paid for it or just to look good, but out of their own hearts. It's true kindness, and they want to help. They want to get you on your feet, find you different ways. They want to show you the right path.
And then a brighter spot came along when your daughter was born.
Yeah, that was a long road, but a good road I chose because she's the best thing that, all those years I was just so miserable and living with a dark cloud on top of me, going nowhere and didn't know what I wanted. And then me and her being out on our own, she's so little, but she was my rock. She is my rock. Through the ups and the downs, through my lowest moments where I'm just feeling like there's no tomorrow, sometimes I just think of her and it keeps me going every day, gives me the drive.
So when they tell you a baby will ruin your life, you've experienced the exact opposite, haven't you?
Exact opposite.
Yeah.
Made me go to school, made me graduate, made me get very good grades. I graduated at the top of my class because I did it all for her. I make everyday decisions, and they've been all for the better ever since I've had her.
Coming up, we'll hear the steps women should take if they find themselves being forced to have an abortion.
Look around you. Every day, heroes abound in our country. We're surrounded by people who courageously face difficult obstacles life has thrown in their paths. Tune in each week to meet people who show there are positive, godly solutions to tough, critical situations. We'll tackle challenging life issues such as abortion, stem cell research, adoption, and abstinence, and show that every human life is valuable and precious. Join us for inspiring stories of people facing life head-on.
Though coerced abortions are a common occurrence, the number of women willing to share their testimony is not. The emotional distress they're feeling is too painful, and the fear that led to the abortion may still be present. but it's important for these women to come forward with their stories. They may be able to help protect those who are in the same situation they once faced. Why do you think we aren't seeing more women come forward with their stories like Day's?
It's too painful to relive. That's why I say it's a very courageous thing she's doing, because I knew today that she was going to have to go through some pain again by just reliving the story. And many of them just want to get as far away from those feelings as they can.
Day, why are you telling your story?
I've kind of been waiting to tell my story. It was so traumatic, and I was so angry over the situation that I've been waiting to just let it out, to help other girls, to let the people know that forced me and that hurt me during this, how much they really affected me. And to let other girls know that there's other ways, that they don't have to, that they can say no.
The important thing to remember is no one can legally force you to have an abortion. As long as you keep saying no, it's most likely to stop the abortion. Even if your parents take you to the clinic and put you in there, if you just tell the abortionist or the doctor, I don't want the abortion, I don't want it, they'll probably stop. You can call Child Protective Services and the police, they should help you. You can call the Justice Foundation, and we'll help you and find somebody locally. So there is help.